Namaste everyone. The grandparent I'm going to talk to you today about is my Dadi. We used to call her Beji. I used to call her Beji. In fact, everyone called her Beji. Her children, her grandchildren, her great-grandchildren, and anyone who came to the house called her Beji. She was this Jagat Beji to everyone. I was 10 years old when I first met my Dadi. I was born and brought up in the UK, and my Dadi lived in India. So it was in 1980, one hot summer, when my father received a letter from his brother to say their mother's not well, and if he wanted to come and see her. My father decided at that point the whole family would go to see her. So off we go, all 5 of us. We go to India, reach Delhi, reach the house. And my first memory of my Dadi was she's sitting in bed, but as soon as she sees us walking through, she's just filled with this joy. She's just so happy, and tears of joy just streaming down her face. She's so thrilled to see her youngest born with his whole family, and she can't stop hugging him and hugging us. Very quickly after that, she recovered from her illness. I think it was just the happiness of seeing us all which helped. My relationship with my Dadi was a very odd relationship. She could only speak in Punjabi and I could only speak in English. One story which happened, which is very fond memory for me, is my Taiji, or my auntie, once said to me in the first few days we were there, go upstairs and take your dinner for your Dadi, for Beji. So it was 2 puris and the sabji and everything else. Take the thali, and I go upstairs. I give it to my Dadi, and she looks at it and says, double roti. So I thought, okay, she wants 2 rotis. So I go downstairs and I go to my Taiji, and I said, by that time I'd learnt a bit of Hindi. So I said to my Dadi, Beji, 2 roti mangta. So out my Taiji goes, takes out the tawa roti, makes a roti, gives it to me, and back I go upstairs, giving my Dadi, Beji, her roti with her dinner. She looks at me and says, double roti. And I thought, there's 2 rotis there. So we had a bit of this conversation, of miscommunication, should I say. And at the first moment I had, I just slipped out and went downstairs, and I thought, okay, I don't understand what she's saying, and yes, just leave it. The next day my father said to me in the morning, Ritu, what happened with Beji yesterday? I said, nothing. She wanted 2 rotis. I gave her 2 rotis and she still wasn't happy. He said, no, she wanted bread. Double roti means bread. It's like, okay, I didn't know that. Anyway. Luckily though, my Hindi improved, my communication improved with my Dadi, and because she'd been away from us for so long, she decided to move in with us. By the way, our holiday, our trip to India became a one-way ticket. We never returned. So my Dadi came and she lived with us then. And I can remember the lots of stories she used to tell. I used to spend a lot of time with my Dadi. My Dadi, she was very short, very petite, very slim. She'd always wear salwar kameez, and she'd always have this chunni on her head. In fact, the chunni on her head would only go on when someone would come to the house, otherwise she'd never wear it. And she was always full of different stories, and some of the stories I remember was when she was 9 years old. She told me about her story when she was at home. Her father was a district magistrate, and this I'm talking about pre-partition India, which is now part of Pakistan. And he passed a verdict on these dakus, or these robbers, the Gabbar Singh kind. And the chief of that gang wasn't very happy and decided, he threatened my father's Nanaji that I'm going to come and kill you. It wasn't an empty threat. In the midst of the night, the gang, the dakus, appeared at my Dadi's house, and when her father moved the curtain to peep outside, they shot him right in the neck, and that was it. At the age of 9, my Dadi lost her father. A few years later, she got married to my Dadaji. She was his second wife. His first wife had died, leaving behind 2 children. So at a very young age, my Dadi was a stepmother. She looked after those children. You can imagine there wasn't that much age difference. They probably played together. Unfortunately, those children passed away. Her stepchildren passed away at a very young age. My Dadi then went on to have her own children. She had 6 surviving children. Many she had in between, miscarriages, stillborns, very common during that time. And then she lost her husband. My Dadaji passed away. So there she was, alone with 6 children, and then partition happened. And she had to leave everything behind and move to Delhi. A refugee in her own country. Back then, in those days, in the village she was from, they were very rich, very affluent. They had a lot of land, a lot of property, a lot of gold. And here she was. Her 3 oldest daughters were married off, but she still had her 3 sons with her. She had a very difficult life. And the stories I remember is whenever she used to tell us these stories, she was never sad, never thinking about why me? Why is it that I lost my father when I was so young? Why is it that my husband died and I was left a widow at such a young age? Why is it that I had to flee my own country, leave my land and my wealth and come and live in a new place and settle down? She always had this fondness of memories, and she'd always relate those stories to us. And this was her strength of character. When I think back, she wasn't academic. She didn't do anything great in the Samaj either. But this strength of character which she had, it was second to none. And this is where my learning is not to take things for granted, but to really treasure what you have and not always ask this question, why me? Why did this happen to me? That resilience, that strength of character is something I believe we can all learn from. So the next time when you're sitting with your grandparents or anyone elderly and they're telling you a story, really listen and really try and understand what is the meaning, what is it that you can take from them. There's a lot we can learn from our grandparents. Namaste, everyone.